All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Edward Kondrat, and I appreciate you joining me for this very important webinar, and it's entitled Homeopathy, a Cure That Time Has Forgotten. Now, I owe my life to homeopathy. I developed severe adult onset asthma about 20 years ago and almost died twice. Traditional medicine did not help me. My neighbor, who's one of the top pulmonary doctors in the city, told me there was no cure for my asthma. Take my asthma medications, and that was all he offered me. One homeopathic remedy cured me of my asthma, and that changed my life forever. I began to look at alternative treatments to help folks with eye problems, and that led me to discover microcurrent, light therapy, and other modalities that I feel can dramatically improve your vision and improve your health. The outline of this webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about basic homeopathy. We're going to talk about homeopathy in the treatment of eye disease, and then we're going to focus on homeopathy and Ebola. Can homeopathy treat serious infections like Ebola? And I think you're going to be very surprised when I tell you the true story about homeopathy and epidemics. I always like to begin with this question: who was the first homeopath? And of course, most people will say Samuel Hahnemann. And I thought that was the answer too, but it's actually Moses. In the Bible, Exodus 23:20, he took the golden calf which they had made and burnt it in the fire, ground it into powder, and stewed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink it. Now, this is exactly how we make our homeopathic remedies. We burn a substance, we grind it, we put it into water, and we drink it. Now, the fascinating thing is that the calf was made of gold, and gold is a homeopathic remedy to treat depression and despair. So not only did Moses use a homeopathic method, he also chose the right homeopathic remedy, because at this point in time, the Israelites were full of depression and despair. So what is homeopathy? Sometimes it's easier to explain what it is not than what it is. It's not herbal therapy. It's not vitamin therapy. It's not good nutrition. It's not diet. It's not relaxation. It is a system of medicine that is based on the principle like cures like. Homeos means similar. Pathos means suffering. And I hope I can explain this to you. This idea of the law of similars, of like cures like, is not a new idea. It actually dates back to Hippocrates, who said, through the like disease is produced, and through the application of the like it is cured. And notice, cured. And I have found that homeopathy is one of the few modalities that actually can cure disease. My friend Dr. Rowan, when he speaks in front of a group, he always holds up a $100 bill and he asks the audience, name one drug, one petrochemical that cures a disease. And there isn't one. But in homeopathy, the proper application of homeopathy can cure disease. And I underline that word, cure. Samuel Hahnemann, the father of homeopathy, well, I should say the father of modern homeopathy, was disillusioned by the medical practices of his day. They were doing bloodletting using toxic mercurial substances. So he retired to a life of translating medical texts. When translating a particular medical text, he noticed that the substance Peruvian bark, or cinchona, was listed as causing symptoms such as numbness of extremities, anxiety, intermittent fever similar to symptoms of malaria, which it was then used to cure. So Hahnemann then reflected on this idea of the law of similars. And in his reading, he knew that this law of similars was something that Hippocrates and others felt was a true way of healing. And so he began a system of medicine, homeopathy, based on this law of similars. But there's also a law of approving, law of potentization, and a law of the single remedy. But we're going to focus on the law of similars. Law of similars state that any substance which produces a specific toxic symptoms in a healthy person, and let me underline healthy person, when that same substance is given in its full strength form, will cure a sick person with those same symptoms in a very diluted form. So what does this mean? Well, our body has a wisdom. If you do believe that our body is made in the likeness of God, it should have a wisdom. So when we develop a symptom or a disease, these symptoms and a disease is necessary to achieve a balance or homeostasis. So let me give you an example. Let's say someone has a high fever. The traditional medical doctor will administer something that will lower the temperature or ablate the fever, get rid of the fever. But the homeopathic doctor feels the body has a wisdom. When there's a fever, there's a reason for the fever. Maybe to get rid of a pathogen, to get rid of a toxic substance, the body needs to elevate its temperature. So the homeopathic doctor will actually give a substance which causes the fever. Now you may say, wait a minute, isn't that going to make the fever worse? Well, interestingly enough, if the body needs a fever, let's help the body do what it's trying to do. Same thing with diarrhea. If you have diarrhea, the homeopathic doctor will actually give something that causes diarrhea. The traditional Western doctor, medical doctor, will give something which causes constipation. So in homeopathy, we feel the body has a wisdom, and all the substances that we give help assist the body in its wisdom. When I was cured of my asthma, I was given a homeopathic remedy, a powerful homeopathic remedy that actually causes asthma. And my asthma was cured. That was close to 20 years ago, and I've not used an inhaler or any asthma medication since then. So if you have a cold or allergic symptoms such as watery eyes and burning nasal discharge, the homeopathic onion, or Allium cepa, is what will treat this condition. Many of you have peeled an onion and your eyes start to water. Well, this is the law of similars. You'll take a homeopathic onion to help treat these symptoms. Ipecac is a known substance to produce vomiting in the case of accidental poisoning, and this is a really good homeopathic remedy to treat cases of vomiting. The bumblebee produces redness and swelling, and if you have redness and swelling in your eye with burning, we will give you homeopathic bumblebee or apis, which is made from the honeybee. Homeopathic remedies go through scientific experiments called provings. In a proving, healthy volunteers are given a homeopathic remedy, and they take the substance until they begin to record symptoms, proving symptoms, mental, emotional, as well as physical. And this becomes our remedy picture. So in homeopathy, we not only treat the physical symptoms, we look at the mental and emotional symptoms too. And when these match with the right remedy, then the most profound results can occur. So these proving remedies, these remedies that improve it have been put into textbooks, very comprehensive textbooks called the Materia Medica. And these books describe the symptoms caused by each remedy. And therefore, the symptoms they described are the symptoms it can be used to alleviate. The same symptoms are also recorded in textbooks known as repertory. And this is an index of symptoms. So if I have burning of my eyes or a subconjunctival hemorrhage or a headache, I can look in this book for a listing of homeopathic remedies that match those symptoms. Now, another law is the law of potentization. And in his experiments, Hahnemann found that in small amounts, the substances were still capable of producing side effects. And when Hahnemann diluted these things more, the side effects disappeared. So this is probably one of the hardest aspects of homeopathy that modern scientists and doctors will agree on, and the one that is most disturbing to them. How can these substances work when they're so diluted? Hahnemann also found that when these substances were shaken vigorously, they released a certain dormant energy. So we have found that by diluting these homeopathic remedies and succussing them, they increase in strength. So these remedies are actually diluted and succussed until there's no actual material of the original substance left. Now, homeopathic doctors feel that this material is transferred to a special higher energy level that treats a certain part of the body, whether you call it the informational field, the energy field of the body, which has even a more profound effect than taking a physical substance. So potencies are different strengths of homeopathic remedies. The most common potencies used are the decimal scale, which has an X after the number, and the centesimal scale, which has a C. Typically, I recommend for my friends and patients to use the C scale, and probably the most common remedy used is the 30C. We do have homeopathic remedy kits in our office, and they're all in a 30C. If you do decide to buy some homeopathic remedies, I would look for a 30C. Homeopathic remedies are made according to the homeopathic pharmacological principles, and they're actually approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration. Many of these remedies are made from natural substance, such as plant, animals, and minerals. They're considered to be safe and available over the counter and completely non-toxic. Another important law of homeopathy is Hering's law of cure. This states that the healing process begins from within, moves outward from the deepest level, the mental and emotional. So as the body heals, deeper processes, deeper pathology will leave the body. This is why often a person will get a skin rash or a discharge after taking a homeopathic remedy. Healing also progresses in the reverse order of the original appearance. So if you would get some swelling of your knee after an accident, and then scar tissue, and then stiffness, it would heal in reverse order. So the stiffness will go away, some swelling may return, and pain in the reverse order. Healing also progresses from above to below, to downward. So if you have a skin rash all over your body, as your body heals, it'll begin to heal on the top part, your face, and the last part to heal will be your toes. It's important that homeopathic doctors pay attention to Hering's law of cure, because when you're taking a remedy or undergoing a treatment, we need to know which direction the healing process is going, which is very, very important to understand. Now, conventional medicine, as many of us know, there are inherent problems such as drug side effects, adverse reactions, and bacterial resistance to antibiotics due to their overuse. Now I want to shift to homeopathy and ophthalmology. It is surprising, I find, that in the late 1800s and early 1900s, many eye doctors were homeopathic eye doctors. New York Ophthalmic Hospital was under homeopathic management, and in 1931, they treated over 31,000 patients homeopathically. There were many homeopathic ophthalmology journals and societies. This is just a few of them. And there are many textbooks on ophthalmology by homeopaths. Many of these books were written in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And I'm in the process of writing a modern version of homeopathy in the treatment of eye disease. And in fact, I'm working on that book right now. One of my favorite books is Homeopathic Therapeutics in Ophthalmology by Moffitt. Another one is Ophthalmic Diseases and Therapeutics by Norton. And I want to talk about an article that was published in 1891 looking at the homeopathic treatment of incipient senile cataracts. And what Dr. Norton did, he did a retrospective study. He looked at all the patients he had treated that had cataracts using homeopathy. And this is a picture of a cataract. So there were 295 patients in this study, and 100 patients were under treatment for greater than 3 months, so he focused on those 3 months. The results were there was an improvement in over half of the cases and no change in 42%. This is remarkable since cataracts do not improve with time. And of course, during this time period, they didn't have any other treatment like we're doing now with eye drops that contain DMSO, ascorbic acid, and glutathione. This was mainly a group of patients that had homeopathic treatment. And these were the top 3 remedies in Norton's studies: causticum, calcarea phos, and sepia. These were the top 3 remedies that seemed to reverse cataracts. And these are the homeopathic remedies that are in my cataract homeopathic tissue salt. I feel that this can be a very valuable adjunctive treatment in terms of slowing the progression of cataracts. There was also a study done out of Harvard Medical School looking at a combination of Apis, Euphrasia, and Sabadilla in treating ocular allergies, and this combination showed a significant reduction in signs and symptoms of allergies. There are some publications and presentations that I have presented: Homeopathy in the Treatment of Macular Degeneration. This was published in the New England Journal of Homeopathy. And Homeopathy in the Treatment of Chronic Eye Disease, and this was a presentation at the American College of Alternative Medicine. I'm going to talk about some cases that illustrate homeopathy in the treatment of eye disease. This is a 57-year-old radiologist who presented with a sudden onset of blindness in his left eye. He's very loquacious or talkative, gets mad very easily, and he has also the peculiar symptom that the vision is better in a dark room and worse in a light room, which is kind of peculiar because you would think that someone that has lost their vision would be better in a light room and not worse in a light room. He has a 5-year history of insulin-dependent diabetes. My examination reveals good vision in the right eye. 20/40 is almost to the bottom of the eye chart, and bare light perception in the left eye. You could barely see out of that eye. And the physical finding is that there's no afferent pupillary light defect. This tells me that it is not a nerve injury. It tells me that there's something going on with the circulation. Looking inside his eye, he has a central retinal artery occlusion. This is a rather serious condition. I was taught in my ophthalmology training that there's absolutely no treatment for this condition, that when you develop this, there's no return of vision. And when I had examined him, this was 5 days after the event. So I prescribed Bothrops, which is a homeopathic remedy based on his presentation. Bothrops is a snake remedy, and it has the characteristic of being very loquacious and talkative. And it also has the characteristic of an acute arterial occlusion, not only in the eye, but it's a remedy used for heart attacks or acute arterial blockage. And he had a complete return in vision in 3 days after using this remedy, and he's doing well 2 years later. This is a phenomenal reversal. He's a medical doctor. He went to see his retinal specialist, and his retinal specialist stated that he was misdiagnosed. It was impossible for him to have a central retinal artery occlusion. But this case made me a believer in homeopathy. Homeopathy can produce miracles, and I see it time and time again using homeopathy. So Bothrops, along with Lachesis, Arnica, Lactrodectin Macans, and Lycopodium should be our main remedies for coping the first hours following heart infarcts and brain thrombosis. And it also has the strong symptom day blindness, can scarcely see her way after sunrise. And remember, one of his presenting symptoms, his vision was worse in the daylight and better at night. So in homeopathy, I mentioned earlier, we not only look at physical symptoms, we look at peculiar mental and emotional symptoms. And the reason why I'm talking about snake remedies first, it seems like the snake remedies are going to be very important remedies in treating Ebola. Crotalus horridus, which is the rattlesnake, and Lachesis are the two top remedies, but we'll talk about that a little later. I want to discuss the 78-year-old patient that I treated with macular degeneration, cataracts, and a balance problem. So you can see that we just don't treat one particular eye problem. We look at the whole person. And it was peculiar for her. She had this severe balance problem. Her vision is very dim. She has trouble reading and dancing. She has an interest in dancing. She has vertigo and ringing in her ears. She is very weak, that her arms and legs shake. An important aspect of her light was ballroom dancing. And also she related her sexual drive was never really high. The vision was markedly reduced in both eyes. 20/30 is barely being able to read the big E on the eye chart. And my exam reveals advanced cataracts in both eyes and myopic degeneration. The homeopathic treatment was sepia. According to A.B. Norton, in his article, The Homeopathic Treatment of Incipient Senile Cataracts, sepia is the #1 remedy to think of in females with advanced cataracts. In particular, sepia likes movement and action. They love to dance, and also sepia has a very low sexual energy. 8 months after this remedy, she can now read the menu. She states there's a 70% improvement of her vision. Street signs are clearer. She has no more dizziness. She's stronger and more confident, and she's back to dancing. And she has no more ringing in her ears, and her vision has improved several lines on the eye chart. So you can see that in homeopathy, we just don't treat the disease, we treat the person. So during a homeopathic interview, I am not just interested in your eye problem, I'm interested in you, your hobbies, your likes, your dislikes, your body temperature, etc. So we use all that information to determine the right homeopathic remedy. Now, let's talk about homeopathy in the treatment of Ebola. Homeopathic doctors have observed that the Ebola symptoms are similar to the Spanish influenza epidemic that occurred in the early 1900s. So can homeopathy treat epidemics and serious infections? So let's look at homeopathy in the treatment of the Spanish influenza. Was homeopathy successful in treating the flu epidemic in 1918? It definitely was, and let me give you the statistics. Not only was homeopathy successful in the Spanish flu epidemic, it was also successful in treating cholera, typhoid, diphtheria, and polio. During the Spanish influenza, the mortality rate of people that were treated with traditional medicine and drugs was 30%. Those treated by homeopathic physicians had a mortality rate of 1.0%. Can you believe those statistics? Why is it that we don't hear about this? Well, a big reason is that traditional medicine doesn't believe in homeopathy. And second, there's no money for big pharma. There's billions of dollars being made every year on antibiotics, antivirals, and vaccines. In Ohio, this was reported by Akron General Hospital. They reported 24,000 cases of flu treated allopathically, had a mortality rate of 28.2%, while the 26,000 cases of flu treated homeopathically had a mortality rate of 1.05%. So these statistics are not based on Dr. Ed Conrad treating 5 flu patients in Florida. This is based on a major hospital, Akron General Hospital in Ohio, that treated the results of over 50,000 cases treated between allopathic methods and homeopathic methods. In Connecticut, over 6,000 cases were reported by Dr. Roberts, with 55 deaths, less than 1% treated homeopathically. He also had 81 cases of flu on the way over to Europe, and he reported all recovered and were landed. Every man received homeopathic treatment. Of the 1,500 cases reported at the Homeopathic Medical Society of the District of Columbia, there were only 15 deaths. Recoveries in the National Homeopathic Hospital were 100%. In Ohio, 1,000 cases of influenza. And Dr. T.A. McCain, MD of Dayton, Ohio, reported no deaths. These results are phenomenal, phenomenal. And we really have to look at homeopathy. Why was homeopathy successful? Dr. Gil Darren studied the symptoms of Ebola, Zaire, the most deadly of the 3 that can infect human beings, and Dr. Vicky Miner, who's a friend and colleague of mine, found the remedy that most closely fit the symptoms of the 1914 flu virus, Crotalus horridus, and this remedy also fits the Ebola virus, nearly 95% symptom-wise. Thanks go to these doctors for coming up with the following remedies. So these are the top remedies for Ebola. Crotalus horridus is the number 1 remedy. Number 2 is Bothrops. Number 3 is Lachesis. 4 is Phosphorus. And 5 is Mercure. Number 1 and number 3 are homeopathic remedies that are easily obtained, and these are remedies that are in my homeopathic remedy kit that I use for flu, and these are 2 of the remedies that I use routinely for retinal hemorrhages. So let's talk a little bit about some of these symptoms. Why does this remedy have a perfect fit for Ebola? This is the rattlesnake, Crotalus horridus. Remember earlier I talked about the law of similars, that if the body has a wisdom and it defends itself in order to maintain homeostasis or balance, we know that with the Ebola, there is marked exsanguination or bleeding from every orifice, bleeding internally, vomiting, bleeding from the eyes, bleeding from the skin, and death is usually due to exsanguination or bleeding or suffocation from blood getting into the lungs. And in the homeopathic literature, this is based on homeopathic provings. In other words, patients who presented toxic reactions to the rattlesnake, these are the symptoms. Generalities: hemorrhage from any orifice, passive dark unclotted blood, very sick, weakened persons with fever, malignant conditions, sepsis, ailments from apoplexy, convulsions, paralysis, aphasia, hemorrhages from the eye. And it's interesting, I use Crotalus horridus in the treatment of patients who come to me who have an eye hemorrhage. Bloody discharge from the ear, bleeding from the nose, epistaxis, varicosities on the face, inflammation of the tongue, bleeding from the gums, tonsils oozing blood, stomach bleeding, vomiting of blood, rectum diarrhea with septic conditions, bloody urine, bloody expectoration, perspiration bloody, and of course, hemorrhage, vomiting blood. So if you are interested in, these are the pharmacies that I use, and I am recording this webinar, and all of you that have tuned in will be getting a copy of the slides. I deal with Hahnemann Pharmacy, if you wanted to order some of these homeopathic remedies, and also Washington Homeopathic Pharmacy and Dolios Pharmacy. All of them have these homeopathic remedies. Sometimes you do need a doctor's prescription. So if you do need a doctor's prescription for these remedies, please give the office a call, and I will give you a prescription to obtain these. But remember, I think this is probably going to be the best defense against the Ebola virus. And I'm traveling with these remedies, and they're on me all the time. During the Spanish influenza epidemic of 1918, 80%, as I mentioned, of people treated with allopathic drugs died. 80% of the people who took homeopathic remedies, mostly Crotalus horridus, survived. We are again faced with a virus that is posed to sweep our country. Homeopathy had an amazing success rate. These statistics are not made up. They're published in the homeopathic literature. There's an excellent book called The Homeopathic Treatment of the Influenza Epidemic. It's available online. These statistics are true. Now, I am available for homeopathic consultations, and this is actually part of the ConDrop program in Florida. So if any of you are interested in looking at homeopathy, we can do this via Skype or over the telephone. You can give the office a call, and we can schedule this. There is also many organizations that'll help you find the right homeopath. One of them is the Council of Homeopathic Certification. They maintain a directory of practitioners who have passed a rigorous national certification. And this is the telephone number for the Council of Homeopathic Certification, 866-242-3399, 866-242-3399. Those of you that are just listening on the telephone, I will be sending all of you a PDF file of this entire webinar with all this information. This is an organization that I'm proud to belong to, the American Institute of Homeopathy. These are medical doctors trained in homeopathy. And believe it or not, this is the oldest medical organization in the country. The AMA, or the American Medical Association, was founded to fight the American Institute of Homeopathy. If you're interested in buying some books, these are two great sources: Homeopathic Educational Services and Minimum Price. I encourage everyone listening to buy an introductory book to homeopathy. I would recommend a book dealing with homeopathy in first aid or homeopathy in the flu. Be prepared. This is the remedy kit that we sell in our office, and you can order this kit by calling 800-430-9328. Right now, we do not have Crotalus horridus and Lachesis in this remedy kit, but as I'm giving this webinar, Nicole is on the phone and she's ordering these additional homeopathic remedies to be included in this kit. I'm on the faculty of the Arizona Medical College of Homeopathy, and they have an excellent first aid and acute care training for professionals and non-professionals. So if you are interested in taking a 6-week course, it's a very comprehensive course to teach you the basics of homeopathy, and you can do this online. You don't have to fly to Arizona. This is the number to call, 602-347-7950. That's 602-347-7950. And these are the homeopathic pharmacies that I mentioned before. Once again, Hahnemann Pharmacy, Washington, and Doliosis. These are some suggested reading. Probably one of the best ones is Everybody's Guide to Homeopathic Medicine by Dana Ullman. It's an excellent book that'll get you started in understanding some of the principles of homeopathy. Also, this book here, Poisons That Heal, Eileen Nauman. She talks about epidemics, the flu, Ebola in her book, and how homeopathy can help you. These are some additional books to read, and you can always get in touch with our office at info@Healing the Eye if you want more information. Now, other treatments for Ebola. This is something very fascinating. Let's go back in time. Hahnemann Hospital, 1942. And believe it or not, this is where I got my medical training. They reported on 103 consecutive cases of acute pyogenic infection. And in 1942, they really didn't have good antibiotics. And this treatment gave 100% recovery for early infections, 46 out of 47 for moderate, and 17 out of 36, half, who were moribund. And that simply means they were on death doorsteps. And all these cases were failure to sulfa drugs. What did they use? Well, and here's the beginning of treatment. This is a fever chart, and you can see on the left the high spike. Immediately, when this substance was administered, you can see the fever decline quickly to normal. What was this? Ozone therapy. This is a therapy that has a 7-year history, virtually no side effects, inexpensive, efficacy rate of 60 to 80%, positive effect of over 60 diseases. Does ozone kill virus and bacteria? These are some of the viruses that have been documented, including HIV, pseudorabies virus, bovine diarrhea virus, Nile virus, and various bacterial conditions. These have been all successfully treated with ozone. Ozone therapy can be administered either ultraviolet blood irradiation, major autohemotherapy, and rectal insufflation. Rectal insufflation is something that you can all do at home. You don't need a doctor's prescription for this. You can give the office a call. We deal with a company in Canada. They can send you an ozone machine. Rectal insufflation can be very effective in treating severe infections. And also direct IV ozone. This is ozone directed right into the vein. This is a letter I received from Dr. Robert Rowan. Dr. Robert Rowan is extremely concerned about the Ebola outbreak, and he and Dr. Howard Robbins are going to be traveling to West Africa on a humanitarian mission to administer ozone to treat Ebola. I have to give my hats off to Dr. Robert Rowan. I have to give him a lot of credit. Dr. Rowan feels very strongly that ozone therapy will kill Ebola. And many of you are probably wondering, why haven't we heard about this? And that is a good question, because I was at the World Ozone Meeting in Rome. I was one of the featured speakers. Over 27 nations were there. Ozone is widely embraced by 27 nations for its effectiveness in treating infections. But here in the United States, the FDA considers ozone illegal. And Dr. Rowan is requesting donations. He will appreciate any donations, and the donations will not be used for personal travel, but for equipment, supplies, and assisting in the excursion of the decontamination expert. And this is the address here, the Central Nassau County Rotary Foundation. So I hope that this has given you some very, very important information. Homeopathy is one of my favorite modalities. Homeopathy can cure disease. Homeopathy has withstood the test of time. Homeopathy has a track record in treating major epidemics, including the last major epidemic, the Spanish influenza. Homeopathy can be very, very effective in the treatment of eye problems. And another modality that I think is very safe and effective is ozone therapy. So please email me with your questions, and I will try to answer all questions in a timely manner. You can also schedule a homeopathic consultation with me, and these are the numbers to call: 352-588-0477. Toll-free number is 800-430-9328. And I want to thank everyone for participating in this webinar. And I look forward to giving future webinars. I give this coaching webinar the first Monday of every month. So I hope all of you will return to join me with my November webinar. So this is Dr. Kondrat wishing everyone good health and clear vision. Unfortunately, because of the large number of attendees, I'm not able to answer questions on this webinar, but please email me and I will try to get back to you in a timely manner. So thank you so much for your participation.